Hi there, this video is going to be just about the X-touch Mini using Axis and Ohs, of course, looking at the LEDs that are on these buttons here. If you've worked with the X-touch before, you know that you can have different functions programmed into a button when it's on layer A or layer B. So layer B can have completely different functions. And what some people wanted was an indicator light to show the condition of whatever it is you've set on layer A. That could be, say, the beacon light or something like that, whether that's on or off when you're in layer A. And when you're in layer B, it could have been the fuel pump that's connected to that. So when I press on layer B, have the indicator just showing the layer B function. And initially I thought that was impossible, but now I know a bit more about Axis and Ohs and the X-touch. There is a method of doing it. It does work. It's got its own warnings with it. There are some things which are not desirable about it, let's say that. But used carefully, this could be what you're after. So let's try to understand it first of all. I'm in the cockpit of 172 in fact, but it is not aircraft specific, and in fact what I'm going to start with is nothing to do with the aircraft at all. Let's bring my camera in so you can see my actual LEDs working here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Stream Deck. You don't need a Stream Deck to do this, but it's much more convenient if you've got something like this to work with. And what I've done is I've programmed in a script that will turn LED 5 on or off, or LED 6 on or off. If you're not aware of it, the LEDs are labelled 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then starts again at 8 here and works its way across. So that's 5 and 6. They're the two LEDs I'm going to use to demonstrate this. If I bring Axis and Ohs in, and let's get into the scripting part. What I've done is I've written a script here which will turn on LED 5. So the script works like this. 1 is on in binary, so if we're setting a 1, that's telling it to be on, and we're setting it across MIDI to device number 7. Now you will need to know your device number for your hardware. So in hardware, show MIDI devices, and on the MIDI outside you can see that my X-touch Mini is given ID 7, and this doesn't change as far as I can see. I've had this set up for a number of years and I think it's stuck at 7 all the time, so I think this is fairly robust script. So we're setting it to device 7. We're sending a note on command over channel 1. You always send over channel 1. That's a universal channel everything's listening on, but they're listening for their own address device. And we're sending it to LED number 5, and we're sending an on command. If you haven't got a Stream Deck or anything like that, if you just press the test button here, you'll see that it comes on, but that light's on now. And if I run the off script, which is just setting a 0 to the same address, click on there and that's gone off. But just to save me constantly flipping between scripts, I've just allocated them here onto buttons here, so I can turn LED 5 on and off just by pressing the relevant buttons. So if I in bank A, layer A, press on number 5, that's on. If I change to layer B, it's remembered that it wasn't switched on when it was in layer B. It is when it's in A, but not when it's in B. Let's turn on bulb 6 when I'm in layer B. Go back to layer A. It remembers what was set there. So it has got a memory. It's not reading anything else. It's not getting any more information from anywhere. It has remembered what was on at a particular time. Let's go back to layer B and let's turn them both on in layer B. But only one on in layer A. It's just retaining that information. What I need to do now is just put everything back where it was. So we're back in the default position. So you need to be aware that it does remember what was in the different layers, but that's nothing to do with the commands that we sent. We didn't specifically send it to a layer. That layer 5 just sent it to that LED, just sent it to here, and it was the X-touch that was doing the sort of filtering itself. What we normally do, if we let's move these out of the way. What we normally do to get the LEDs to light up is run a script in the background. We use what's called an aircraft automated script that runs continually in the background and checks the state of a variable and writes whether it's on or off to one of these bulbs. Let me try and illustrate that to you. Let's put the script editor in here. What I've done is I've allocated to here, to these buttons, the beacon on off toggle. So if I press this in layer A, I'm just going to let's move that up a bit. This is my layer A, and these will be my layer B functions. I'm just using 4 buttons to demonstrate this working. So if I press on the beacon now, you'll see the beacon switches on and off. In theory, I could have written a script here for this button here, so that it sent the MIDI code as well. But it doesn't really work because I can switch that on and off by other methods. I can switch physically clicking on here and switch it on and off. So that wouldn't have sent the MIDI command. Equally, I've got a honeycomb yoke, so I can switch it on and off with a physical switch. So there are all sorts of ways that could be triggered, or it could be an LED that you want to light up that is controlled by the aircraft itself. It could be a warning light coming up saying low voltage, low fuel. So that's why we use that automated script in the background to sort of poll through all the different variables you want to check for to light up the LEDs. And this is what one looks like. So this one here looks at the beacon lights, and if it's off, send an off command to number 5, and if it's on, send the on command to bulb 5. So that will check for the beacon light being on and off. And this one here would be checking for the landing lights, and that uses bulb 6. But equally, if I wanted to switch to layer B and use the fuel pump or the pistol heater, so I've got those programmed on the same buttons but layer B functions, then it would again check. But again, all it does is sending it to bulb 5 or bulb 6, the appropriate on-off command. No notion here of what layer this is actually in. So let me allocate that script. So on the aircraft automated script, I've put it in a folder called X layers, and it's the automatic LED. Add that in, and it's just going to sit there repeating all the time. So if I turn the beacon light on, it lights up. If I turn the beacon light off, it goes off. Same with the landing light, that's working fine. Do for layer B, same button, but this is turning the pump on and the pump off, and that's working absolutely fine. You can feel the butt coming, can't you? If I turn the beacon light on and then decide to go and look at the fuel pump, well, the fuel pump is clearly off here, but the light appears to be on here, but it's only on because the beacon is still on, and this has got no way of differentiating, so it just sends the command, the on command again. This time it's in layer B, and it's going to remember that. So if I go to layer A and turn the beacon off, it's remembered that the pump light was still on when I was in layer B, which it's clearly not. So it just doesn't work. It just got very confused. And the difficulty is that when we press layer A and layer B, nothing here transmits back into Axis and Ohs, this doesn't transmit at all. So we've got no way of interrogating the X-touch to find out, are you in layer A or layer B at the moment. So what we need to do is to switch from layer A to layer B, but keep track of that with our own variable that we need to use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into my aircraft script and remove that because it's clearly not working correctly. It's almost there, but we do need to use another script here. So if I go use this one here, I've written a script called go to layer B. We assume we're in layer A, and it uses a variable that I've created. And you don't do anything to create it particularly, you just use it. So and immediately you use it, it starts by default at 0. So we're going to say that 0 is A, layer A, and if it's a 1, it's a layer B. So what this will do is it will send a command from the Axis and Ohs to the X-touch. We can talk to the X-touch and tell it to change layers. So if we send a 1 to MIDI device number 7, but this time it's a program change and sending a 1 to it, that will tell it to go to layer B. And this line here changes what was the default layer 0, changes this to a 1, so it's kept the variable, it knows it's in layer 1. So what I need to do is to allocate this function to that button here when it's in layer A, because that's going to tell it to go to layer B. So let's assign that. So I'm assigning a key down event, and it's in my folder that I've called X layers, and I'm going to tell it to go to B and allocate that to that button. So now I'll test that, and when I press it, you'll see it's changed to layer B. And if I watch that variable, watch simulator variables, it's a local variable, it's an L variable. I called it my layer, I think it is, and it's 1. So what I'm going to do now is allocate the opposite script to the same button when it's in layer B. So let's allocate that, and I've got a script in my X layers called go to A, allocate it to here, click on add. So now when I press on this button here, it's taken it back to layer A and changed the variable, so we now know when it's in layer B or when it's in layer A. And I'll just show you quickly the script for that. So the script for go to layer A is send a 0 via program change, and it's over channel 1. Okay, so we're sending a 0 to program change, and again it swaps the my variable, so it was in 1, it's now sending it, it's set it back to 0 again. So we know now what layer we're in. What that means is we can write a different script now. So my new automated script will check if I'm in layer 0, and if I'm in layer 0, then just deal with the lights that are on layer A, the beacon and landing lights, and just switch them on and off. If I'm not in layer 0, I must be in layer 1, which is the layer B here on my Stream Deck. That will deal with the lights for the fuel pump or the pitot heat. So that's the LED script I'm going. So it's exactly the same script that we had before, but just wrapped up in this if statement or wrapped up in the else statement, just splitting the two, what's on which layer. So let's allocate that now as a script. So it's an aircraft automated script, and it is in my layer LED script, and that should be running now. So I'm in layer A, press the beacon light. You can see the beacon light, the beacon switch here has moved, and the LEDs come on. If I move it using this button here to layer B, it's remembered that the pump is off. Beacon light is on, but pump is off, so that's not causing interference. Let's be in layer B, and I will now turn the pitot heats on. So this LED is on. It knows the beacon light's on, pump off, landing light off, but pitot heat is on. So I've now got it working with the two different layers. What you mustn't do, and I said there is a real drawback, is you must not switch layers using the layer buttons, because you'll switch the layer here, but nothing will come back and change the variable that's in Axis and Ohs. So it won't know what layer we're in unless you change it using just this. So somehow you've got to, if you've been using that by habit, get out of the habit of using it. Make sure that you just use this function here. Last little bit, there may be some lights that you want to light up which are not layer specific, and I'm going to use my parking brake as an example here. Whether the parking brake is on or off. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to allocate here this button here to be the parking brake, and I want that to be on and retained whichever layer I'm in. So the key down event is the parking brake. I want to toggle the parking brake using that button there. It goes dead when you're in the middle of allocating, so you can't change it. Right, so I'm back on layer A, and it was the parking brake. Parking brakes toggle. I want to allocate it to this button here. Click add. Now I want to add that to my script. But I don't care whether it's in layer A or layer B. I want it to work for both layers. So I put it above, and it will do this no matter what layer it's in. So I want it to check the parking brake condition. Parking brake position, and it's exactly the same script as here, so I'm just going to do some cutting and pasting. Let's copy and paste. There's got to be a space here, and I'm using bulb 4 for this one. And we'll update that script, and you can see immediately the light's on because the parking brake is on. And let's turn the parking brake off and the light's off, and it doesn't matter if I'm in layer A or B. That's remembered over the switch. But if I turn the parking brake off, absolutely fine. So I hope that makes some sense. I said the big warning about it, the thing that is really difficult, is not to use the A and B switches. Just use those as indicators, and that's the way to switch between the layers once you've got this system working. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. I say it's a bit complicated, but if you're up to that level, I think, of programming that much stuff in on here, then you should get to grips with that. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.